like this, so they wonder, they asking me.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of Sports Card Talk. We're back in action. Coleman Cards in the house. Steeler Cards in the house. How are we feeling, gentlemen?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Feeling great, Sash. How are you?
I'm good. I want to jump right into it, man. Trae Young has been hot. We've talked about this over and over and over again, but his prices continue to go up. Somebody's asking on Instagram, hey, look, I found a Trae Young card, a Trae Young base prism rookie, PSA 9, and he can get it for $220. Do you think that is cheap at the moment? What do we think, boys?
I'd say that's right on par. 220 is like the market price.
I agree. I think at Burbank
it's cheap as go for it.
I think at Burbank yesterday they had him up at like 240, but yeah.
Expecting 220.
Yeah. I mean, do you think they're going to I guess the question would be, because of his play, do you think they're going to continue to go up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They've kind of already gone up for a second, and Trae's balling out, but that team's hot right now, which means everyone's going to gun for them. So they could go on the opposite side of that, whereas they could go on a losing streak, and all of a sudden Trae's soft again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a tough question.
What about you, Shai? What are you thinking?
Trae, I don't know. It's kind of tough with all these rookies, especially. It's kind of a gamble. Do you think he's going to perform? Do you think he's going to win? Especially with Trae, the ceiling is so high already. People are expecting so much, and now there's MVP talks about Trae. Luka's not performing as well for some people's opinions. So I would say there's a lot riding on Trae right now, which could be his downfall, but could also lead to a lot of upside. So I'm personally holding.
Yeah, you're holding Trae Young right now?
I only have 4, and I'm holding him.
Okay. There was like a deal yesterday where there were some Trae Young cards, and I was like, fuck, like these are like $800 on eBay. Holy shit! Like I didn't want to buy them. I mean, I didn't buy them at like 800. I think it was at like 700 a piece. But it's like weird when you're like buying something at like, like $300 or like $400, and then like now and the price goes higher, and you're like stuck in this point where like you don't want to buy it, even though like it could continue to go up. You know what I mean? But I bought them. So I mean, I guess that answers the question. I still think that Trae Young has room if they keep winning games. Like it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about winning. But I think this also did show us that like the hobby has like a lot of respect for Trae Young cards. Like I think last year you could see it too. Everybody wanted Luka, but everybody also wanted Trae. And now that Trae's winning, he's seeing a healthy growth. Also, we're finally at a point where John Morant cards are less expensive than Trae Young's, which I think should have happened like beforehand, before all this, because I think Trae Young is a better player. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on that.
I would say that Trae Young is a better player than John Morant. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I just think, the new shiny thing, and, Ja experienced a lot of attention because Zion was out and he was balling really well, whereas a lot of people last year thought that Ja would be under the radar, which he wasn't. He was full front and center because Zion was out, and he played really well and won Rookie of the Year. So I think that factored into his prices and made him, a little bit more than Trae because he was the new shiny object.
To respond to Sasha's point, I don't think Ja is cheaper than Trae, actually.
Is he not?
The base is. The silver of Trae does like 35 and the Ja does like 45.
Oh, I didn't know that. Saying. So the base, that's weird though, how the base is Ja base
Trae
is cheaper,
base is
but
more. Silver's less.
That doesn't make sense to me.
If I am correct.
Yeah, that doesn't like I think you're right. I'm just saying that doesn't make sense to me. Our 2019 silvers are pretty much similar to 2018 Prism. Like, is one of them tougher to grade on that, or
2019 is a little bit harder to grade with PSA. 2018 is easier to grade with PSA, but it's also hard. It's weird. 2018 is harder to grade with BGS. 2019 is harder to grade with PSA.
So we got $1,000 difference there. Wow. I would buy the Trae Young silver at 3,500. I don't even, unless you're like holding the jaw to flip it right when he comes back.
Well, you'd have to look at pops. That's probably why. The pop on the jaw
Yeah.
is probably like 600 or 700, maybe more. And then the tray is like 2,000.
Interesting. We got a question in. Somebody asked, are legends like LeBron and Kobe or newer stars like Giannis and Luka better for investing? I think that with when you're buying a newer star, you're always taking a little bit of a risk, right? But at the same time, you can also see these huge appreciation in prices if they're playing extremely well. I would say this though, I think we talked about this before, with fractional ownership happening as we speak, these fractional ownership companies buying up big LeBron, Kobe, Jordan cards. I think that we're at this point. It's almost like a if you invest in a business when it's private, and then once it goes public, prices go crazy, and everybody who invested when it was private made a ton of money. I think it's the same thing with LeBron, Kobe, and Jordan cards. Whereas if you're buying those, rookie chrome refractors or Fleer, 10s or 9s right now, that's essentially like you're investing in a private company. And then once these fractional ownership companies, which are continuing to buying up all these stock, let's say, or cards of these players, once those go public, I think you're going to see a lot of growth in those guys' prices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say it just depends. It just depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be safer, you go with LeBron and Kobe. That's going to be safer, more likely incremental growth. But based off what we've been seeing, I don't even know. Like they could experience rapid growth still compared to Luka and Giannis. Luka and Giannis is more like if they go on just a crazy run here in the regular season or they put up some insane stats, you're going to see their stuff just rise. Whereas LeBron could probably like put up a 50-point game and like his stuff will go up, but it just won't be the same. Whereas like Giannis, I think Giannis has some room though, because people are not really like Giannis stuff is dipping, right? So LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10 is 18K. A Giannis is like 3,600 or 3,700 or something, maybe 3,800, which is down from what it was at like 4K. And when a LeBron was 16K, a Giannis was 7K back in August. So like if you're going for, it just depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to play it super safe, you're going with you're going Kobe, LeBron. If you're trying to like make a play and like experience some pretty cool growth, you could buy some Giannis right now and bet that he's going to play well enough and convince people again that the Bucks are a contender. Because right now, market says that the Bucks are not a contender, therefore he is not as good as an investment, in my opinion. And then I would say the same thing about Luka right now. He's not playing that well, even though he just balled out against the Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat and almost had a 30-point triple-double. Didn't even play the fourth quarter because they were beating him so bad. Yet Luka's not playing well right now, and his stuff is dipped. So his PSA 10 base was at 2K. Now it's at 1,700. Luka's stuff's never going to dip a ton because there's too many collectors. So if you're trying to make a play, I'd go Luka and Giannis. Because you're going to experience some more growth there if you're right. But if you're trying to just play it safe and go incremental, you're going Kobe, LeBron.
Yeah, I think the answer here is diversification. I don't think there's one correct answer here. I think the best way to do it is get a little bit of both. Obviously, the safer play is with the LeBron, Jordan, Kobe. The more risky is with Luka and Giannis, as both Sasha and Michael have said. But I would say that the way to do it personally is to lower your risk is through grading. Those younger guys, you'll be able to grade a lot easier than going and finding a nice, clean LeBron Topps Chrome or Kobe Topps Chrome and PSA 10ing it or PSA 9. Those cards are very hard to grade. But those Lukas, you can probably go find a nice, whatever, select copy that's in a BGS 9 or a optic that's in a BGS 9 Prism or in like a 9 min gem. And you'll be able to crack that and send it to PSA and get a 10. So that then you're not only invested in Luka, but if that PSA 10s, you're making money from that margin And if Luka's doing bad and it's still PSA 10s, you'll still probably break even, maybe even make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Great point.
I have like multiple questions that have the reference Bitcoin in it. But I'll kind of like mix them all together and then we can just talk about it. It's basically like, can sports cards go parabolic like Bitcoin and values 3x this year? I would say that sports cards, if you were in it a year ago, you probably did better than Bitcoin. Because I think Bitcoin is at 30K for a Bitcoin right now, right? If I'm not wrong.
Right.
And I think a year ago that was what, like 15?
I think it was less than that. So I think what they're saying is like it was like 8 to 10 a year ago, maybe.
I would make the argument
Yeah.
though, if you're in
8.
sports cards a year ago and you put 8K in, it would be more than
It'd be over 50K probably.
Yeah. So like I would say that sports cards actually had a better return than Bitcoin over this last year.
100%. 100%. And with sports cards, you can do cash deals. You can't do cash deals with Bitcoin. You can't. I mean, if you're cashing out on your Bitcoin, you're paying capital gains tax. So that's my whole thing with the stock market and Bitcoin and stuff like that is like, I can't see the same returns because you can just go crazy with grading and buying and flipping with sports cards and appreciation when dudes ball out or just the market growing in general that you can't see with stocks or anything like that. Stocks is just way, 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 way safe. You know, it's there, it's been there. And then you can do cash deals with sports cards. Therefore, you're not doing any capital gains tax. So I get that Bitcoin's going crazy and stuff, and I see that number, and all I think is, man, what if I had bought in at 8K a year ago? But then I think, and I'm like, I did way better than that.
Yep.
You know?
Well, I think one thing with Bitcoin, I just want to point out there is a lot of people are paying with Bitcoin now. It's becoming its own form of the dollar or the $100. So instead of people paying whatever 2K, 3K, or what, like for a LeBron top scoring PSA 10, instead of paying 17, 18K, they're paying half of a Bitcoin through various platforms. So I would say that you don't necessarily always have to sell it because you could spend it towards something else. But
you could also like, I feel like we're gonna get to the point too where like, yo, I have a LeBron James top scoring PSA 10, like, give me your car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could be considered a way to, or a trade, I guess, at least.
Yeah. I think Bitcoin's very interesting though, in that it's kind of a very complex type of thing. I consider it very different from the stock market. And I personally am investing in the stock market long term. I don't do the day trading and options and all that. I just invest long term. But I think Bitcoin is definitely very interesting. I would not buy in now personally. I would wait for a pullback. Just like every other market, it will explode and then it'll come back down to some extent. Bitcoin won't just keep rising for the next year and a half or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So I would wait for the pullback and then add then if you're confident in Bitcoin long term.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would you guys rather have, and I already know this question, but like, I'd rather have $30,000 and put it into the sports card market versus putting $30,000 to buy one Bitcoin.
100%. Again, like diversification, right? So like if you have $300,000, you know, why not put 30 grand into sports cards, 30 grand into Bitcoin if you want, you know?
Yeah.
Totally get it. But
I would say, yeah, the one thing with sports cards is, as Sash and Michael have pointed out, grading. I know Sash is a big believer, and both Michael and I are big believers on grading because you're able to create your own margins. If you're able to find what looks like a PSA 10 copy of a card, let's say the card is $5-10 and you find a PSA 10 on eBay last sold for $100, you just wait, you have some patience, there's a $90 profit if you think that that's a PSA 10 and it does PSA 10. And that's what the value as is. If the player like Keldon Johnson, who's just balling and his PSA 10 silver is doing $700 now, I guarantee you there's guys sitting on Keldon Johnson silvers at PSA right now and they're just making bank. Because if it comes back a 9, he's still making probably 4 or 5x. But if it comes back a 10, he's making 10, 15x. So I think the power of grading is ridiculous. And I know people complain about the waiting times and all that, but the waiting times can hurt somebody, but it can also very much benefit you, especially on the longer ones, like 45, 20 day, because you don't know where those players and those cards will be in those 3, 4, 5 month span.
And it's crazy to think about, like, when we're saying, okay, like, where are we at in the sports card market scene? Like, is this the, are we still extremely early? Are we at the peak or whatever? And I just think that, I think we're still early in general. But and one of the main things, again, is the fractional ownership thing that has me, like, really, really excited. And when I've been talking to different people, they'll be like, yeah, I have friends that are worth 300, 400 million. And they're like, I'm going to put $1 million into the Jordan Fleer market. That takes a good chunk of that market away from people, right? And then you have, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 people doing that. Go put $1 million into the LeBron market. Go put $1 million into the Kobe market. Like, that gets to a point where these pieces become even rarer and rarer and rarer. And I know Coleman, I think it was after the show, we were talking about the MJ Fleer market, PSA 10, and we were saying how there's probably over 100 PSA 10 copies from PSA. Was it somewhere around there?
There's 330 PSA 10s,
and
but
then there's some amount of people that aren't even going to be selling it. So I think that's what has me the most excited, because as we continue to, as 2021 continues to grow and we get deeper into the year, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these pieces slowly get stashed. And that's when it really turns into an investment / art form.
Let me explain one thing there too, because you touched on a really important thing, which is people are always asking, hey man, should I buy the 9? Should I buy the 8? Should I buy the 7? And what you just said explains why you buy the highest grade possible. Because if someone's coming in and saying, hey, I want $1 million worth of Jordan Fleer, they're not getting PSA 3 Jordans.
Yeah.
They're going to take that $1 million and stretch it over the 10s, the 9s. Highly doubt they're even going to touch the 8s.
Yeah.
So if they clear all those and there's none available, then the next one's going to go for a lot more money.
So I don't even know if they would touch the 9s. I think they would just go with 10s if they can't find 10s.
I don't think they can get that many.
Okay, so for sake of argument, you get my point.
Yeah.
My point is that when you're going after a card and you say the PSA 10's worth, let's just say 3,000, and the PSA 9's worth 1,000, there's a reason why that PSA 10's worth 3,000, because it will move faster than the 9, than the 8, than the 7, any of them. So if you're trying to get into an investment vehicle, you got to be aware of that and know that PSA 10 will go from 3K to 5K, while the PSA 9 goes from 1K to 1,500.
Yeah.
So like if you're trying to make money and you want the best investment, you got to keep that in mind, because people are like, oh, well, I can only afford the 7, so I'm going to go after a 7 and stuff. And then they see a 10 sale go for like, 220K. And then they're like, oh, well, my 7 should be worth 2X now. And it's like, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, you just defined it right there as these people that come in with tons of money that just want the best of the best of the best, because that's the best investment.
Yeah, I want to point this out real quick, because this kind of what Sasha's touching on with the fractional ownership companies. At the end of the day, they're just buying a lot of the supply and it's stashing it. So the supply of a lot of these cards is down. And just to draw a connection, the same thing has happened with Bitcoin. A lot of these big companies, I read an article the other day, 75 or 80% of the Bitcoin that was available is owned by these large institutional companies. That's why there's only 25% of it to the regular ordinary people. So I think that's a very big similarity between cards and Bitcoin. But I think cards were kind of early, because I think there are those institutional companies, but I don't think they own 85% of cards, nowhere near that. But
it's just crazy. Like I've been talking to multiple people this week, and I'm hearing how much money and how many cards they're like buying right now. it's absolutely insane.
Because I think at the end of the day, they're willing to. I think it's just
They got huge money behind them, right?
They just need to buy into it, and they need someone to tell them about it. If they buy into it, do their research, and I think a lot of people are getting to the point where they know about sports cards to some extent. They've heard about the boom and this and that. They may have not researched it, but then they're just completely lost. So once those big investors, especially if they're not like collectors or know anything about them, if they have someone helping them, telling them, hey, go buy this, go buy that, that's where it's going to get really interesting. And that's the only reason they would get into it, because they wouldn't just randomly put money in it.
Yeah, they already have, card guys that they've hired and have behind them. It's just going to be not only great to see, but just like wild to see when, a regular average stock trader maybe has a 9 to 5 and does stocks on the side, is like, oh, I want a little bit of, the LeBron market, and goes buy a couple LeBron stocks. Like, it would be like they have, it would be like the fractional ownership company has, let's just say 300 LeBron Chrome PSA 10s, some 9.5s, and some refractor 9s. They put it all together, and then that's a LeBron stock. Like, that's
LeBron ETF.
Yeah, it's going to be insane, but I think that's where we're going. And if I had a timetable it, I would say we're about like 1 year, 2 years away from that really becoming mainstream in a way.
For sure.
We got a question from Sergio. It's actually a simple question. Where do you guys find info on card shows and trade nights? I feel like that is actually, I always get a bunch of DMs about that, and I'm like, I don't know, it's just always on Instagram, like somewhere. But any like tips to like finding the shows and the trade nights? I know right now it's hard because COVID, there's no shows, but just in general.
No tip, or go for it, Shaw. You might know.
Yeah, I would say just ask around your friends. I know Sash is pretty well known, or he knows a lot about like the OC shows around in that area, and I'm more in the Valley. So we're just in two different areas, but kind of relatively close. So I'd say ask your friends, see if they know about the shows. B, just through Instagram. And once you just find those shows, it's not like there's 10, 15 shows in each area. There's usually 5 to 10, I would say there's around 5 in our area, I would say. So I would say Instagram, Facebook, and ask your friends. I would say those would be the best. And then once you find them, they're just like reoccurring. But right now, obviously, in a lot of the areas there aren't. So you just find them, and then once you go, they'll be every month or every couple of weeks, and then you'll be set.
I would just take this second to mention that for a lot of people that are trying to enter this hobby, the best way to do it is to find your own like way to kind of get in, to kind of stand out so that you can make connections and get deals coming to you and stuff like that. And if you want an easy one, here's an easy one. Start an Instagram account that's dedicated to posting about card shows. And I guarantee you'll eventually attract enough attention to where people are DMing you about shows and you're making posts about their shows. They're very grateful about it because you're providing exposure, and it allows everyone to funnel to one Instagram account to find out about shows, because we get this question all the time and there's nothing. There's not an app. There's not a website. There's nothing that like tracks all the shows around the United States. And so if there was an app that literally was just like all about local shows all around the country, I know for a fact I would use it. I know for a fact 1 million people would use it and be all over it. And if someone wants to hustle and make that happen, they're going to make all kinds of connections. They're going to get all kinds of deals brought to them. They're going to like accelerate in this hobby so fast if they're willing to do that. So.
Sasha's thinking how he can make that app as we speak.
100%.
It was funny. I was talking to Rob yesterday at Burbank, and he was just like pouring with passion about like all of the things he wants to do, like to evolve within the industry and just like shows and stuff like that. And this is just one of the things too. I think that with the industry of the card market has grown so much in terms of value. But the tech behind it really still feels old. But I can already see some key players that are going to be changing that. One of them is Burbank. I think they already in the average shop world has just taken out every other shop that exists.
Yeah.
Even the new shops that are coming out, like it's just not comparable to Burbank's theme
Model.
and what they model and what they offer. And when he was telling me about the other shit that he's going to do in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 year game plan, I was like, holy shit, man! This like they have great minds behind them and great people behind them. So I'm excited to see them kind of take that jump and then the rest of the shops hopefully following. It's just crazy to see how some of these shops and also just the industry in general hasn't evolved with the tech in 2021 now.
Well, I think it's because the market has moved so fast.
Yeah,
You got to think about it. A year ago, what were LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10s doing? That's when
4K.
That's when I had my Luka Blue. That was like
1800.
No,
Yeah,
it had to be 4K
1800.
right now. It had to be 4K right now.
1800. It's at 18K.
It's November. Yeah, it had to be like 4K. October,
That's not bad.
November, it was like 2K.
Well, doesn't matter. It was
The same
3K
shit.
and now it's 18.
Yeah.
So I think the growth is why, and I think the technology will come.
January 6th. It's January 3rd. January 6th, it was at 2200. So it's fair to say 3 days before that, it was at 2000 or 1800. Damn, not good.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see all the. It's so amazing when you're in an early market like this. I think people maybe have like 1 or 2 opportunities in their lifetime to be in this sort of market. And I'm just stoked that I'm 22 and I'm in this early market because in any early market there's always a ton of money to be made, but there's also a lot of other things. You can create businesses, you can create tech, there's so many other things around it that if you're willing to put in the work, you can create some amazing things.
I have a quick prediction. I think that once this whole pandemic is over and once we get into trade nights, trade shows, the national, I think we will see a lot of growth there as well. Because I think that it's limiting a lot of people to a lot of deals. But once more deals are made, more money is available to be spent. And it's not just strictly to the online market. I think we're going to see a lot of growth there as well. And I think that's where I think leading up to the national, if it does happen, I'm hoping it does. I think that is going to be a historic event, and I think it's only going to grow from this year on.
Sleeping giant, man.
Yeah, it's crazy because we were in that month period, 2-month period where everything was kind of opening up for Southern California, and we had the Elk Lodge show, the Westminster show, and then Coleman, you and Ryan and first off the line, John, we're going to have the Burbank show. That would have been almost a show every weekend, just right there. So I assume that once everything goes back to normal, there will 100% be a show every weekend. And I think there'll be a point where there's 2 shows every weekend. You have to pick which one you want to go to.
Or go to both.
Or go to both. So you're going to see me driving up the 5 and down the 5 and 405 and down the 5 to hit up.
Or Sasha goes to one and Kyle goes to the other, and I go to one and Mike goes to the other.
Yep. So I can't wait for everything to go back to normal once it's safe. But yeah, I think we're going to end it there. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you follow us on there. And then if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, number 1, like this video, comment below of what you agreed and disagreed with, and also any questions you have for the next episode so we can answer them. And we will see you guys in the next pod.
She want me to lock it down, but I told her to pass the key. You gotta slow it down, girl, you moving too fast for me. Nobody did it like this, so they wonder, they asking me if I can slow it down, cause it's coming too fast for me.